Hey guys, and welcome into our Season 2 Buffy the Vampire Slayer tier maker video. As we did for the first season, today we are going to be completing 3 different rankings on tier maker, and those 3 rankings are going to be Season 2 episodes, Season 2 characters, and Season 2 villains. I was able to find a pre-made Season 2 episodes tier maker, so that is what we're going to be using for that, but I had to make my own character and villain tier makers, so those are a little bit more customizable because I was the one who made them. But I figured for the episode ones, it was cool to just use a pre-made one. I absolutely adored Season 2. It was so good, and I'm so excited to get into Season 3 because as much as I loved Season 2, it felt like there was so much good setup to lead us into Season 3, so I feel like Season 3 is just gonna be even better. Disclaimer before we get started. I just want to say, please be kind in the comments to me and to each other. I know the last time I did a ranking, I think it got a little bit heated in the comments, just a little bit. I just wanted to put a little disclaimer here to just remember this is my first time watching the show. I've only seen these episodes one time. It's very possible that these rankings that I'm doing now are going to change, and I feel like that's the point of these rankings. It's fun to see where I put things just based on a one-time viewing rather than being somebody who has sucked into the universe and have seen the episodes multiple times and gotten to grow with the characters and see where they go. And I just want to say, if you don't agree with my rankings, that's probably kind of the point. And it's just supposed to be a bit of fun. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. And I guess with that, we can get started. We will start with the episode rankings first. All right, you guys. So this is the pre-made tier list that I found for the episodes. I really love how they did the little pictures where they have a photo and then the title of the episode on it too. And then the way that they split it up is just from S to F tier with A, B, C, D in the between. I can't imagine honestly that I'm going to be putting any of these episodes in F tier because even for the episodes that I find maybe weren't my favorite or the most important of the season, I found entertainment value in every episode of the season. So, well, let's just go in order. That'll be easy. Let's start with When She Was Bad, which was the first episode of season 2. I thought that this was a really strong season premiere. I thought that it picked up on where Buffy left off emotionally really well. They really carried out the themes that brought an end to season 1 into this first episode, specifically with Buffy's just emotional state and how she was doing, and I really appreciated that about this episode. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this one in A tier. It's not S tier for me, and I couldn't tell you an exact reason why, but it was definitely a strong episode. Episode 2, Some Assembly Required, was a bit of a Monster of the Week episode where we had our Frankenstein type boy. What was his name? Daryl. Daryl was the name. He had died however long ago, and his brother had brought him back to life with his friend, and it was just kind of this Frankenstein-esque episode, and they were trying to kill all these girls to build a Frankenstein girlfriend for Daryl, the Frankenstein boy, and it was a fun Monster of the Week, I think. This episode also had Giles and Jenny going on their first date, which was really exciting for me. And so I'm actually going to go ahead and put this right up in A tier, which might be crazy because it's weird. It's going to stay behind When She Was Bad. I did enjoy When She Was Bad more, but it was an A tier episode for me. I enjoyed it. School hard. Is there an explanation necessary for this one? Just look at the picture. We are putting this in S tier. I will never forget Spike's entrance to the show. It was so exhilarating. I don't know how to describe that moment. I just knew when Spike made his entrance to the show, I was like, oh, this is a character that I gotta keep an eye on because who gets an entrance this badass? And then that episode ended. I believe it was in the same episode that Spike showed up. We got to know this weird relationship between him and Drusilla that left much to the imagination and left me wanting more, left me wanting to know more about them. And then the episode literally ended, I think, with him killing the Anointed One, which made me low-key root for him because I was like, okay, cool. I don't want to deal with the Anointed One anymore. Thank you, Spike. I know you're another villain and I shouldn't be rooting for you, but it's funny how even in that first episode with Spike, I was rooting for him a little bit, not exactly as a villain that I wanted to take down Buffy. I'm still Team Buffy over Team Spike, and I still recognized him as a villain, but I recognized him as a really fun villain that I wanted to stick around. And that's exactly what the show did for him. So it just was so exciting and so fun. That's just one of those episodes I want to go back and rewatch. I feel like that episode has a lot of rewatchability and is so much fun. I really do want to get into watching other people react to Buffy. Now that I have season 1 and 2 under my belt, I want to go back, and I think it would be nice also to refresh myself with the season 1 and 2 episodes without having to watch it all in full, is to go back and watch reaction channels. So if you have any like Buffy reactors that you would recommend to me, I need to start looking into that, so let me know. So we had School Hard, and then immediately following School Hard, we have Inca Mummy Girl. Listen. Like I said, I don't think any of these are going in F tier because I wasn't bored out of my mind wishing it would be over for any of these episodes. But looking back on the season as a whole, Inca Mummy Girl is definitely D tier for me. And I honestly don't have much to say about it. Like, we had like the Mummy Xander romance. Turns out that she's not the real foreign exchange student. It's just like a old, I guess like the villain, Amparo was her name. The villain is somewhat of an interesting villain, just not fleshed out a lot because it is just a monster of the week. I just feel like that type of storyline where Amparo was trying to live after she was sacrificed by her people, you know, that's something that I can have empathy for, but my empathy can only go so far for a character when I'm only seeing them in one episode. And maybe that's not even completely true because there are other characters, and maybe we'll get to them, where I felt for them really hard even though I only had them for a short time. And there was just something about Amparo where I was like, I feel for you, girl, but this isn't okay. Can we move on? Like, I don't know. This episode just didn't hit for me. It's not one of my favorites where I'm excited to go back and rewatch. Reptile Boy is another monster of the week, and I'm gonna actually put it in B, which is, I think, pretty high. Like, B and up for a monster of the week episode, I think it is something to celebrate, especially when we're getting into season 2 and there's more complicated plot lines where you're wanting to see those develop. And sometimes, like a certain monster of the week episode that we'll get to later on in the season, you as the audience, I feel, can kind of go, oh, I don't want a monster of the week. There's so much good stuff going on. I want to keep going. So like whenever a monster of the week is really fun and seamless within the show, it just deserves B and up in my case. But the reason that I am putting Reptile Boy in B and keeping some assembly required in A is because I felt like the villain and the storyline of the monster of the week here was just better and more fleshed out and more interesting, and whereas Reptile Boy was more fun, and Reptile Boy relied heavily on like the frat bros, right? And that they were making sacrifices to this random reptile like demon in their frat house basement. It's so funny to explain. But I do think that the most interesting part of that whole story was the mindset of the frat bros, who were just accepting that they had a reptile demon in their basement. I don't remember what exactly the deal was and why the frat bros were okay with just sacrificing women to this reptile demon in their basement. But there was definitely there was a mutual benefit type of situation going on there. And it's just like the frat bro mentality of accepting that is what was interesting to me. And if that side of it was more fleshed out, it probably would have gotten up to A tier. But the emphasis ended up in the end being more on Buffy and Cordelia being in trouble, almost being sacrificed to the reptile demon, and that was like the main, I guess, conflict or climax of the episode, rather than any like psychological dig into the mind of a frat cult, which is what's the more interesting part to me. But it was still like a really fun episode and I enjoyed it, and that's why it's going in B. Halloween was such a fun episode. It's gotta be S tier. It's gonna stay behind School Hard, but it's definitely S tier. It was so fun to have everybody kind of take on a different character in becoming the Halloween costume. We also met, what was his name? We met Ethan Rain, he's a recurring character. We didn't know it yet in the Halloween episode. I don't think that he was a recurring character. But actually, we sort of did, because then at the end of that episode, like the big, oh my gosh, at the end of the episode was Ethan leaving Giles a note saying that he would be returning. And then we knew that Ethan wasn't just a villain of the week type of person. There was something more to him. So it's always exciting when, I guess, Halloween is somewhat of a monster of the week, but it's also not, because it set up Ethan. And that's what's exciting. about this episode, outside of the fact that also it's just a really fun episode. I'm a huge Halloween fan. Like, I love Halloween themed episodes. So maybe the fact that I'm a big Halloween girly is contributing to me putting it in S tier, but also it was just so fun seeing all of our characters be taken over by different characters. And it was very Willow centric because Willow was the only person who got to remain herself. And so seeing her step up to the plate and kind of be the hero of the episode was really fun to see. I feel like she did a lot of reflection on herself. This was just a big turning point for Willow as a character. She gained a lot of confidence in this episode, which was really exciting to see. There was also, I remember Oz pulling up in his van and seeing her on the street, walking on the street and being just like in awe of her. But this was not the first time Oz saw her. Oz saw her for the first time. Oz was introduced in Inca Mummy Girl, which, do I need to raise Inca Mummy Girl to C? Because I love Oz, and Oz was introduced here. You know what? I'm gonna bring Inca Mummy Girl up to C just because of Oz being introduced. But then seeing him come back in Halloween and continue to admire Willow from afar was just another bonus. Spike also showed up in Halloween, so that was cool. I don't know, there was just a lot going on in Halloween, and it meshed perfectly and made for a really fun episode. Lie to Me is also an S tier. School Hard is definitely still my favorite of the S tiers. So it's going to go behind School Hard, but is it going to go... it is going to also go behind Halloween. It's going to go behind Halloween too, but it's so S tier. It was such a cool story that was told in that episode. We also got into Angel's background, and that was kind of a big deal for Buffy as a character to face Angel's past. That's when we found out that Angel turned Drusilla, and that the new villains that were introduced in School Hard, they're not just random randos. You know, they have a connection to Angel, which is so exciting to see those interconnected relationships come together. There was I remember a really sweet dialogue going on between her and Giles at the end of the episode that was really heartwarming. But also just the villain aspect of this episode, which was Ford. Although I'm not sure. Ford isn't exactly a villain either, because we'll get into Ford later on when we get to the villain ranking, but I just want to leave it at like the idea that there's people who are infatuated with the idea of being a vampire. That was so weird to see. Ford working with Spike, getting to see Spike again. Ford working with Spike and trying to cut a deal with him so that he could become a vampire because of his situation in life. It was just like, it was a very complex episode, and I really appreciated it for its complexities. The Dark Age, are these all just going to be S tiers? Because, oh my god, the Dark Age. This is when we got to know Ripper. We got into Giles' past, right? I gotta put Dark Age ahead of Halloween. Because, oh man, I was just so excited to get more about Giles' past. Like, the Dark Age was one of those episodes where I was like, oh, this is the type of show that is not gonna leave any crumbs. Like, this is the type of show that's really gonna take its time to flesh out all of its characters, and they're not ever gonna be one-dimensional. Like, every character has a past, present, and future, and they are going to show that to us. And I really appreciate that the show did that with Giles in this episode, especially because it was so interesting. Like, I never would have expected this type of past from Giles. At this point in the show, him and Jenny, which I was rooting for them so hard to be together, they were finally like really, really getting there together, and then she was possessed by Igon. Igon was such an interesting villain. Jenny being in real danger. That was the first time I was like really expecting something terrible to happen. Like, I wasn't sure what was going to happen to Jenny in that episode, but she was possessed, and I love that it carries out into the next while, where Jenny is not sure if she can interact with this group because she was so affected by being possessed by an awful demon. It was really scary. I think that Giles, like the actor who plays Giles, he really got to shine through. Like, he was really affected too by seeing Jenny get hurt. I don't know. It was a really interesting storyline. And then on top of it, like the reactions and the effects of the storyline and how it affected the characters, it was just done perfectly. What's My Line Part 1 and What's My Line Part 2. I love that we had this kind of like mid-season, they felt like mid-season finales. I'm not sure if that's exactly what they were, but having a part 1 and part 2 of mid-season where we really got to dive into this new character, Kendra, find out that there's another vampire slayer because technically Buffy died. It was just so good and so unexpected. And I remember it was What's My Line Part 1. It ended with that cliffhanger of Kendra being like, who are you? I'm the vampire slayer. And it was just like the craziest cliffhanger of an episode yet, and I enjoyed it so much, and I was so excited to see where they went with it. So obviously S tier, still behind School Hard. I don't know, I have a thing for School Hard. This was also when Spike was having all of his assassins try to attack Buffy. I think there was 3 different assassins that we were introduced to. And we thought that Kendra was one of them, which was so good. It was, that's why it was so good. Like, it was so out of left field that Kendra was introduced as another vampire slayer, because it was set up throughout the whole episode that she was one of the assassins that Spike had, like, hired to take out Buffy. But then she wasn't, and then it leads into part 2 where we get to really learn about Kendra. Do I like part 1 or part 2 more? Part 2 is another S tier, but I'm gonna put it just behind part 1. I like the mystery that was happening in part 1 where I didn't know where it was going, and then the cliffhanger, the mystery of the episode that led to that cliffhanger at the end was just so good. And then part 2 was also really exciting, and it was great to get to figure everything out that was set up in part 1, but I don't know, the suspense of part 1 was really, like, I loved it even more. And then, of course, I loved part 2 as well, but part 1's my favorite out of the 2. Also, part 2, this is the start of Cordelia and Xander, which, how is that still going on? I did not think it was gonna last this long. I don't know if it's gonna last. I don't know where that's going. I just never know where that's going, but I was so shocked. That was the biggest shock of part 2 was Cordelia and Xander hooking up. I was like, what's happening? Things are changing. The characters are shifting. How is this a thing? I was not ready for it. So that was fun. And then, of course, this is the one that had the big ending where Spike gets injured, and we didn't know yet how injured he was. Maybe I do have to put, I totally forgot that this is the episode that led to Drusilla coming back. You know what? I gotta do it. Part 2 is the better one. There's a lot that I love about, they're honestly maybe even equal in my mind, but the way that part 2 ended with Drusilla coming to full power, which I kind of love when villains win. Like, not the big wins, but these little wins are really fun and really exciting for the villains, because I'm like, oh my god, it's just building up the suspense even more for something that we don't even know what to expect yet. Obviously, Spike being in that wheelchair for pretty much the rest of the season and this being the catalyst of that, was just a really big deal. Wow. I'm just, like, right now realizing how great those 2 episodes were. They were so good. They were so good. Ted. Oh my god, Ted. Great episode. A tier. Gonna put him here. Ted was just a really unexpected episode. It was really great. It was an interesting choice to follow up What's My Line Part 1 and Part 2 with a Monster of the Week, but I think just so much went on that we needed a little break. And even though this is technically a breath of fresh air episode, kind of a break from the big plot lines of the season, it was still so stressful in the best way. Like, thinking that Buffy killed someone who wasn't a monster, like her having to come and face herself a bit in this episode and realize the kind of power that she has and how careful she needs to be going forward. But then the relief that Ted was actually a robot, and also just the idea of seeing Joyce date. I think that's like something that's gonna be brought up later on, because I'm not sure if Joyce is gonna stay single throughout the whole show, but if she does, that would be okay, that'd be fine. But it's also likely that she's going to date, and that's going to be something that Buffy's going to have to face. And now, after the situation with Ted, imagine how many trust issues Buffy's going to have with Joyce's dating life in the future. I don't know. It was a really, really interesting episode. And then it was followed up by Bad Eggs. I am going to put Bad Eggs right here. I don't know. It was an interesting concept, and it was an entertaining concept. But why was there like a random egg monster in the school's basement trying to take over the world? I mean, because we're on the Hellmouth. Anything can happen. We don't always need a clear motive. Sometimes demons are just demons. But I don't know. It was just, Bad Eggs was just so weird to me. Like I said, it was entertaining, but it really didn't further any character plot lines, any major plot line. It was just so random. And I don't think there was any tie-ins to anything in this episode. It just was what it was, which is fine. But that's why it's going C tier for me. Surprise. Oh my god. This one's a big turning point episode. This one's got to be S tier. Just a matter of where. The big thing I remember from Surprise is it's her 17th birthday, and that night she sleeps with Angel, which of course we know what comes out of that. The episode ends with Angel like being in severe pain and leaving the bedroom or his where he lives and going out and like screaming, and we're like, oh no, what's happened to Angel? And then we find out later what happened to Angel, and oh my god. So this is a big turning point episode for season 2. It's the catalyst for all of the Angel stuff going forward, which is the plot line of the rest of season 2. And also this is when we find out that Calendar was actually sent to keep an eye on Buffy and specifically Angel to make sure that he is staying cursed with his soul and like is in pain living with his past, because it was her people, her ancestors, that put the curse on him because he like killed her ancestors' daughters or something, and they exacted revenge on him by returning his soul. She was a group of Romani people. She comes from a line of Romani people. And so it was just like a big reveal that Calendar actually knew who they all were, was sent to the Hellmouth for a reason. And I don't know, it was interesting to see. It was, again, I love when we find out that there's a past to someone when I'm not even expecting to need one. So where are we going to put Surprise? I think Surprise is going to go right here above the Dark Age and behind our mid-season finale episodes. Also in Surprise was when Spike was like getting the judge, not the judge, just Judge, which is weird. I want to say the judge every time. But Spike got Judge, a demon, revived him as, you know, he's always trying to get help to bring down Buffy. And in a sense, we get more of Judge content, and obviously this picture right here is Buffy taking out Judge at the mall with this giant, I don't even know what you call it, but it was badass. And of course, Innocence also, this is where we find out Angel has lost his soul. Buffy has to deal with those consequences. It's a very emotional episode. I'm gonna put it another S tier. I'm gonna put it behind Halloween, because Halloween was just like so much fun and so cozy, but Innocence was important. I don't know. This is definitely a matter of preference and what you enjoy in shows. Phases! Oz is a werewolf. That was so fun. I think I gotta put Phases in A tier, I'm thinking. Definitely the top of A tier, because again, we're fleshing out a character that I didn't realize we needed to flesh out. It made me excited too, because I was such a big Oz fan that finding out that they were making him a werewolf, I was like, okay, maybe he's still gonna stick around. I'm shocked, by the way, that Oz is still around by the end of season 2, and that I'm hoping he's still gonna be, I hope he's still in season 3, because it's probably gonna skip the summer, come back at the end of summer, pick up on the next school year, right? And they could be like, Oz moved away. He's living with his cousin in a werewolf town. I don't know. They could get rid of Oz so easily in the in-between, and I hope that they don't. I hope they still have more to do with his character. I really want him and Willow. I've not gotten enough Willow and Oz content. I need him to stick around. But that's going to go at the top of A, just because it was technically a Monster of the Week, but the Monster of the Week turned out to be Oz, which is such a fun twist. And the true monster of that episode was that werewolf hunter who was like, a sketchy dude to say the least. Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered is another A tier that I'm gonna say goes in front of Some Assembly Required, but stays behind Ted. Ted just had so many themes in it that really made us get introspective about our characters and made the characters get introspective about themselves, which is why it's gonna stay ahead. But Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered had the fun and the charm that Halloween did. I don't know how to describe it and how it makes sense, but Halloween and Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered have the same energy in my eyes, and it was just a lot of fun. Like, Xander was an idiot in it, obviously. We got the return of Amy, which I'm hoping that she still will return. She was so different, because I loved Amy in season 1 when we defeated her mom and put her mom in the cheerleader trophy. Still think she might break out, but then finding out what Amy's like after all that happened, and as time has passed, she's darker than she used to be. She's getting into witchcraft and she's using it to her advantage, and I think that's really interesting for her character, and I want Amy's character to come back so we can dig more into what she is like now. I think she could be an interesting one. It was just a silly episode, really entertaining, and it was really funny. Like, it was just funny, and it had me rolling my eyes a lot, and it had me going, oh, Xander, why you like this? But at the end of the day, it was just really entertaining, and it is an episode I think that sticks with you. Like, it's an episode where you're like, oh, remember that episode? You know what I mean? It just has stay value in my mind of like, I'm never going to forget that episode. Passion. R.I.P. Jenny Calendar. This deserves best of the best S tier in my eyes. It's the first one to go ahead of School Hard for me. I just love when shows raise the stakes. I love when shows take you by surprise. And it's not even just that we lost a main character, it's that we lost a main character at the hands of another main character. It was so shocking in so many different ways. And it definitely changed the tone of the remainder of the season. It changed the tone of our characters. It just changed everything, this episode did. And I appreciate the guts that it took to make an episode like this. And it wasn't even just that Miss Calendar died. It was that she died at like the worst possible moment. She was so close to helping us restore Angel's soul. And that's when she went. And no one even knows that she was trying to help. It was so frustrating. The timing of her death was so frustrating. Like, it already takes guts for a show to kill off a major character. But a lot of the time when they decide to take that step, they make it emotional or happy or, you know, it's a good sacrifice or something like that. But no, it was just a plain depressing, bad timing death of a main character, and I've never seen anything like it in a show. So like the shock value of it and the way that it changed the rest of the season and affected our characters, it's got to be best of the best S tier. And then it was followed by Killed by Death, which wasn't great. It wasn't my favorite follow-up. Like when you have an episode like Passion, you're expecting to see a really heavy episode to follow, and while of course Killed by Death, it's not the lightest of episodes either, but it's a monster of the week that doesn't really have to do into anything. We got a little bit into the mind of Buffy and the aftermath of Miss Calendar and everything, but not as much as I would have liked for the episode following it. So I think I'm gonna put Killed by Death at the top of you know what? I'm actually gonna put it here in C tier. Yeah, I Only Have Eyes for You. So this was an incredible episode. It didn't really fully sink into me my first watch, but you guys were quick to let me know of the main metaphor of this episode, which heightened the episode so much for me. But even without the metaphor, it was such a great storyline, so intriguing, seeing the parallels between the story that happened all those years ago and Buffy relating to a murderer, which is so sad because what James did in my eyes is just nowhere near equivalent to what Buffy did. But there is that parallel because Buffy feels like she's on that level, which is really, really sad. It's actually going to split up the What's My Line episodes for me. The episode has so many layers, and the reason I'm putting it so high too is because I just know on my rewatches it's going to get better and better. It's one of those episodes. And then Go Fish. Listen, I don't know. Do we put Go Fish in D? It had entertainment value. It did. It was funny. It was funny. But but the placement of the episode is just the weirdest thing ever. That's so strange. I actually think I enjoyed Go Fish more than Bad Eggs though, if I'm being honest. So I'll go ahead and put it there because it was just so wacky. And then we're down to our two-part finale. Both S tiers. I think I enjoyed Becoming Part 1 more than Becoming Part 2. Did I? What I really loved about Becoming Part 1 was all of the flashbacks. I enjoyed the flashbacks so much. So this one's going right here. We also lost Kendra in this episode. Losing I guess she's not a main character, but she just feels like such a big deal, and losing her was devastating, and it happened in Part 1, not Part 2. Like, it was setting up so much in Part 1, and then of course Part 2 I'm going to put right next to it up here in S tier. What do I even say about these two episodes? Part 2, I'm just nervous for Buffy. I'm nervous to see who Buffy is in season 3 because she went through so much in the finale of season 1, and then when she came back for season 2, she was pretty messed up. And if she was messed up from what happened to her at the end of season 1, imagine what she's going to be like after everything that just happened. She had to kill her first love, send him to hell through this Akathla demon. I also think that that part 2 is setting up Willow possibly getting into some witchcraft, and maybe, I don't know, I think something happened she was like possessed when she was doing the spell, I think, to try to return Angel's soul. So I don't know, I think there was a lot of setup happening in these final 2 episodes for season 3, but at the same time, while it had the setup for season 3, it also had a lot of perfect loose ends tied up for season 2. So yeah, that is my ranking for the episodes of season 2. And with that being done, we can move on to our ranking for the characters. All right, you guys, I'm gonna try my best to not use run-on sentences. I'm gonna try my best to just let my heart and mind come together as one and make quick decisions. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 categories that I made. Top one being Marry Me. Marry Me is obviously best of the best, where I feel like it's not literal, but it's like, as a character, please stick around. I love you. I want you to be here forever. Thank You is like, I appreciate you. Had Potential, of course, is like, you're great, not bad, but there could have been more from you. Meh, I don't care is exactly what it sounds like, and the Z's is like, I could have done without you. Or maybe even I don't remember you, because some of these people that I had to get pictures of, I'm like, who are they again? Are you sure? What happened with them? So there might be a Z or two. First off, Amy is definitely going to go and Had Potential, and I think she still does. I think she can still come back. I think we can still build on her character. When I first saw her in season 1, I was like, great, but I want more from her. And then the same thing kind of happened here with her cameo in season 2. I was like, great, but she's a different person. I still want to see more from her. So they're doing something right with her character. It's not like I don't care about her. I want more, but they just haven't given me everything that I think they could with her character yet, if they ever do. Angel. I'm going to put Angel in Thank You. I'm going to put Angel in Thank You because we wouldn't have season 2 without Angel. Buffy wouldn't be who she is without Angel. He's just a driving force in a lot of this season, and in a lot of character motivations and a lot of fallouts. The season 2 just wouldn't be what it is without Angel. We need him. But of course, he's not been my favorite character. And it's not like I have to like the character for them to be in Marry Me status. I don't think that's exactly it, but there's just something about Angel where he's just not in Marry Me status, but I can at the same time appreciate him for what he brings to the show. And I think I appreciated him more once it became soulless. Like, what he did for the show at that point was really interesting and really heightened his character for me. Buffy, listen, there is no explanation, there is only reputation. Marry me, please, Buffy. What do you mean? This is going to happen in every ranking. Buffy's going to go in top God tier, S tier, marry me status. And I simply will never explain, because I don't think you need an explanation. It's Buffy. Cordelia. I'm actually going to put Cordelia in Had Potential for season 2. I think I might have enjoyed her character more in season 1, because in season 1, she was more one-dimensional, but she was hilarious. And the one dimension we got from her in season 1 was all I needed at that time, and it was perfect. In season 2, they started to dig away at her a little bit more, but they never did it to the extent that I wanted them to. I think the closest we got was when, I forget what episode it was, but it was the episode where she stood up to her friends. She said she chose, I'm going to stay with Xander and I don't care what you think. That was a big deal for her, because that one-dimensional character that we knew in season 1 was just girl who cares about being popular and being pretty and getting the hot boys. Like, that's all she cared about. And so, like, seeing her heart open up more in season 2 is really exciting, but I still just don't feel like we're there yet with her character. I feel like her character is in somewhat of a weird limbo right now, where she's not yet who she's meant to be for the show, but she's getting there, so I'm like waiting for it. I don't know. I still don't know how she feels about Xander. Her and Xander's relationship is, can I pick out, where is Xander? I'm gonna put Xander and Had Potential too. Who who comes first, Cordelia or Xander? Xander is kind of frustrating this season. I've seen some hardcore comments against Xander, and I'm not there yet. And I don't know if I ever will be or what, but there are people who truly hate Xander. I don't hate Xander. I just think that his character is very, what's the word for it? Unpredictable at this point. And I just never know what to expect from him. And it's not really in an exciting way. It's not like Spike is unpredictable. Like, I don't know what, I guess I don't know what to expect from Spike. And that's something that I like about him. But Xander's the type of unpredictable where I'm like, is he going to get mad about this or not? Is he over this person? Is he not? Does he care about this? Does he not? And it's like, because I can't quite figure him out yet, that's why he's still in Has Potential. Cordelia, I think I'm starting to figure out, but they just need to push her character more for me. Whereas Xander is so back and forth that I'm not sure yet. I do appreciate Xander's love for Buffy and Willow, friendly love, I mean, for his friends. I think he is very loyal. I think he is funny. He has a lot of funny moments. I think he was funnier in season 1. Kind of like Cordelia. Yeah, and then again, like him and Cordelia's relationship, I'm not quite sure how I feel about it still after it's been so long. It kind of gets put on the back burner a lot, and sometimes I'm left wondering, are they happy together still? Are they not? I don't know. They do have potential, though. They have definite potential. Who is that? Do y'all see this? Who even is that? I put these pictures together and wait, let me look closer. Oh, you know what? I think that might be Deirdre, which is Giles's old colleague that was in an episode very briefly, but I wanted to include her. I wanted to include her and Philip because I think that they're important people in regards to Giles's past, and they were really while we didn't get to know them as people, as characters, just knowing that they existed and have been around and were kind of like a stepping stone into us learning about Giles's past, I felt like they served a good purpose for the show. I'm going to put both of them at the end of had potential. I would put Philip above her just because he got to last longer and provided more for the episode that he was in, whereas Deirdre was just like very brief at the beginning, like the opening scene. Dr. Backer, I'm actually going to put in thank you. Obviously behind Angel, but I spent all of Killed by Death thinking that Dr. Backer was the one behind all of the children dying. And the way that he was genuinely just a good doctor, and the twist was that there was an actual different, like, invisible demon that looked like Freddy Krueger that was attacking these kids. And Dr. Backer was just there trying to cure them, doing his best, working late to try to help these children. It was just so heartwarming. And so, I don't know, I appreciated that twist a lot with Dr. Backer. So thank you for being a good guy. Ethan Rayne is going to go in had/has potential up here. Again, like I said, I'm very intrigued by Giles's backstory. I really think that Ethan as a character he could be a major villain. Why can't I remember how his character ended? Did he just leave town? He didn't die or anything. We didn't kill him or anything. I think he's still out there, which is another reason why I think he has a lot of potential to come back and mess with Giles. I think he was great in the episodes we saw him in, but I still think we can get more from him. And I think he can provide some really interesting story arcs moving forward. So I kind of hope we get more from him. If not, he did fine. Like, he provided a good enough amount of content for season 2, but I'll always be thinking of like what could have been with that, because I think, have you guys figured it out? I'm really intrigued by Giles's past. Really, it's really interesting to me. Ford is another thank you. His character was so interesting. Obviously, it was cool that we got another one from another person from Buffy's past. He was a friend of hers in LA. He started off the episode as a friend. We got to the middle of the episode and he became a villain, and then by the end of the episode, he became somewhat of an anti-hero where you really feel for him, but you can't stand by his decision making either. At the same time, basically, I believe he had cancer and he was trying to become a vampire so that he could be immortal because he didn't want to die. And it's like, yeah, when you have an expiration date on your life, you're going to become desperate and do some crazy things. So it's like, I can't even fault him for wanting to become a vampire and wanting to do whatever it took, despite who it might hurt, aka Buffy, to do that, to live, because it's just like desperation to live. It's just like survival mode. Like, I can't fault him. He was the most complex villain, I think, outside of maybe Spike. I feel like Spike is very complex and he's just going to have more and more to offer. But as far as like one episode villains, Ford is the most complex, interesting one episode villain that I think we've ever seen. And I'm really actually sad that Buffy killed him in the end, and I'm sad about that. Oh, this is Gage. I had to include Gage because I thought he was so cute. I have to put him. Where should I put him? I feel like Gage had potential. But he was so cute. That poor guy. It's so funny that he's out swimming in the ocean as a little fish nowadays. I think he survived as a fish. That episode was wild, but we had some annoying fish guys, swim team guys, but he was so sweet. Like, he turned into a sweetheart. Buffy saved him. He was like clinging to her side and was like, "Hi, Buffy." I remember him being at swim practice and being like, "Hi." He was just like, I don't know. I was sad. This scene, what we see in this picture where he turned into the fish, I was like, oh man, not Gage, because he turned out to be really nice. Sorry if I'm misremembering. Maybe he did something awful, because I remember there was some like questionable things that the swim team bros did, but I don't think Gage was one of them, if I'm remembering right. So I recognize you, Gage. I'm so sorry that you are a fish now. Giles, marry me. Giles, marry me. Sometimes I mean that literally. Giles, I love. Like, there was just so much, especially for season 2. Like, I loved that we got to dig more into Giles. Not only, I feel like he served more as a secondary character to Buffy in season 1, whereas in this season, I'm interested in him just for him. I'm interested in him for just who he is. If we have Giles-centric episodes going forward, I will be engaged in them. We've seen him experience love and loss. We've seen his different triggers because of his past, and we've seen how much he deeply cares for Buffy, even more so than just her watcher, I think, at this point. Like, season 2 just strengthened their relationship so much. There were so many amazing scenes. There was that scene where he kind of lost himself after Calendar, when he tried to go and kill Angel. That was crazy. And then Buffy stopped him, and they cried in each other's arms. It was just like, I love Giles, and I would for real love to marry him, so... All right. Oh, we've got this pair. What are their names? That's James, and that is Grace. So Grace, I'm gonna put her in Met I Don't Care. It's really odd to me that we had this like forbidden love story romanticizing a relationship between a teacher and her student. That's illegal. That's disgusting. James, on the other hand, much more complex. He is a murderer. But his character was very important for Buffy in projecting this idea of forgiveness. And so for that, I'm going to put James in has potential, or had potential. I'm going to put him right here, because obviously I don't think he's going to return, which is why I think I'm going to keep Ethan ahead of him, because I'm hoping Ethan might return. Miss Calendar. I'm going to put Miss Calendar at the very top of thank you. I don't know. I think she was the definition of like a perfect secondary character. They just did everything right. She's one of those characters whose main purpose turned out to be pushing forward other main characters. And so I have to say thank you so much, Calendar, for coming to the Hellmouth, being loyal to your people. Thank you for empathizing with our characters. Thank you for trying to return Angel's soul and help Buffy, despite the fact that Buffy didn't like her anymore after finding out that information about her, why she was in Sunnydale. Thank you, Miss Calendar. Joyce is still a has potential for me character, and I'm hoping now that she knows about the supernatural, knows that Buffy is the vampire slayer, that she's going to rise up in these rankings by the end of season 3. I don't have anything against Joyce. Sometimes conversations were frustrating to watch between her and Buffy just because she didn't know what Buffy was dealing with, and that's why she's a has potential character. I'm hoping that she will become an even greater mom now that she knows everything. Kendra. Thank you, Kendra. This is such a cool idea that there's 2 vampire slayers at the same time. It was also so cool that we got to see how differently she worked as a vampire slayer. It's not like all of these vampire slayers are copy and paste products of each other. Like, they all work very differently. They have different watchers, they have different backgrounds. The way that she was brought up in like a supernatural context where her family knew she may one day be meant to be a slayer, and she trained kind of her whole life for that moment. It's just so different. It's so cool to know that it's different all around the world on how vampire slayers are created. She was a badass, she died in the end, and she leaves potential. She left a great legacy for herself, but she's also leaving potential for us as the audience to anticipate another vampire slayer for season 3, and I'm really excited to see who that might be. Larry's definitely a had potential character. It's always interesting to see social issues get brought up in older shows. Obviously, his character was a bully, hyper-masculine man who turned out to be gay, and that's like a common, it is, I would say, a trope at this point in 2023. This type of character, I think, has run its course in modern media, but it was still a big deal to talk about and shed light on, especially in the 90s when being gay was like very different to coming out then and coming out now was just 2 different things. So yeah, I'm curious to see if we ever see him again. Hope he's doing well. And I hope he's still being a nice guy, not that he got to confide in Xander. Our screenplay is going to go at the very bottom of had potential. What were you doing helping the psycho swim coach feed fish stuff to the swim team? I don't know. What were you doing? Like, when she died, when she got fed to the fish, I was like, oh, that sucks, but also, what did you expect? Obviously, at the same time, she was kind of warning the coach, hey, we should probably stop doing this. She was obviously a good person at her heart, just talking to a brick wall, trying to talk to the coach. But it's like, come on, girly. Why would you think in the first place it would be okay to feed like fish DNA to a swim team? Oz. Oz. Marry me. Marry me, Oz, please, I beg you. I don't think it's a surprise that Oz would go in the marry me category. He is going to stay behind Buffy and Giles because his character doesn't give as much to the show as they do. But when he's around, he's the love of my life. He is perfect. He can do no wrong. The whole werewolf thing, slight flaw, I guess, but nothing I can't look past. I love him and Willow. I just love him. I love him. I'm in love. Principal Snyder is going to go and thank you behind Kendra. I am excited to see where Snyder's character goes. I think we still have a lot to learn about him, especially given his involvement in our finale where he was like tight with the mayor and called the mayor after expelling Buffy and was so excited about it. I just still think there's more to learn about him. He obviously knows about the supernatural. He's in charge of covering up stuff with the school. He has this tight relationship with the mayor. He has a vendetta against Buffy. And I think that vendetta is deeper than I realize, and there's more to learn about him. He's also funny. Like his cartoonish hatred for kids is funny. The actor does great with it. So yes, thank you, Snyder. And I hope to see more of you in season 3. Ryan, sorry Ryan, I don't really care about you. Ryan is from Killed by Death. He was like the main kid that was affected by the Freddy Krueger guy. I forget his real name, or like the demon's real name. It was something weird. But the kid killer in the hospital, the kids just weren't the main. It was about the kids because it was about saving the kids and the kids were being attacked. But like the kids themselves weren't the interesting part of the episode for me. The interesting part was the doctor, the villain, and Buffy. Like those 3 characters. The kids were kind of just there to make the episode make sense and like tie it all together. Sheila's gonna go and had potential just above Greenlee. I don't remember much about her outside of the fact that I was intrigued for her in the moment. She got turned into a vampire. Is she still out there? I don't remember her dying. Is there potential for Sheila to return as a vampire? I can't remember, but she had potential. I think we could have seen more from her. You know, a student at the school being turned into a vampire, I think that could provide a pretty intense plot line, and it's happened before, but we never flesh out that possibility. Like, I kind of wanted to see more of Sheila. She had potential, but we didn't really get to see much of her. Teresa, I for real forgot about her. So sorry, girly. Enyos is Jenny's uncle, and if I'm being so serious, I don't know if this is, like, controversial. I'm gonna put him in meh, I don't care. Like, what I do care, please, I'm gonna put you above Ryan, though. Please let me, thank you. What I do care about is the story he brings with him. What I do care about is the backstory. I care about what he brings to Jenny's character, but Enyos as his own character, I don't really care about. And he was kind of annoying. Like he's not willing to have any compassion or understanding for what Jenny's going through. He's just very stuck in his ways. And while I appreciate what he did for Jenny's character and the backstory he gave us, I don't care about him as a person. Whistler was an interesting character. And I'm not sure if that was the end of him. We only got to see him at the very end of season 2 in those 2-part finales where he was kind of playing Ghost of Christmas Past a little bit. That was the vibe I was getting from him. I'm going to put him in had potential behind Joyce and in front of Ethan Rayne, just because the idea of there being a demon that's not all evil, that was new to me. That was new information to me. I mean, we've seen different sides of villains before, yes, but he's just a straight up demon. I still don't 100% understand what his purpose was, why he wanted to bring Angel to Buffy, what outcome he was hoping for, because I remember he was saying like this wasn't supposed to happen this way, but like how did he know what was supposed to happen? I'm just interested in the type of demon that he is and how he works. So big time had potential character that I want to see more of, and not even just of him, but the other demons like him are very interesting to me. Willow, girly, marry me, marry me. I'm going to put her second place right behind Buffy. Willow had a lot of growth in season 2 that I appreciated. It's really cool because season 1, she was just so into Xander. There was a lot of insecurities that she had in season 1. She looked at Buffy as, I kind of wish I was like her. She looked at Xander as, I wish I could be with him. And now, even though she has Oz, like is dating Oz, I truly believe she's grown enough as a character to the point where I'm like, she doesn't need Oz either. Like, she doesn't lean on him. She isn't infatuated. She appreciates him and is happy in that relationship. But I feel like she's already at a point in her life where she knows her own worth and is really growing into herself. I don't know. I really appreciate how they navigated her relationship with Oz. I will always root for Willow. I can't imagine she would ever do anything. If she becomes a vampire, I'm going to be like, team vampires, I guess. And then Willie. If I'm being honest, I don't really care about Willie. I don't. He was like important for like one episode or two. He was in the mid-season finales, right? He played a part in that, but I don't care. So this is my season 2 character ranking of Buffy. Please don't eat me alive in the comments. I apologize in advance. My hands are up. I'm sorry, but this is where it's at. Now let's get into our final ranking, which is of our season 2 villains. I made it the same setup as our character list, where it's Marry Me, Thank You, Had Potential, Men Don't Care, and Zzz. So, with that being said, first up we got Akathla. Oh my gosh, what a banger. Where am I going to put him? Because like, yeah, he served a big purpose in our finale, but also he never really, he's not sentient either. We didn't see him as a sentient demon. So I'm going to give him a thank you. You know, I don't want to marry him. He wasn't like a great earth-shattering villain. Well, he's the reason that the finale was what it was. So, thank you. Ampada. Girl, I'm so sorry. I don't care. I don't. Does that make me bad? Like, it's because of all these other great villains that by the end of season 2, Ampada is just like, And do I need to explain that further? I don't think I do. Like, I'm sorry for what happened in your past. I'm sorry, but don't mess up our present. Oh, Cain, the werewolf hunter. Ugh. I'm actually going to put him in Has Potential because he was good. He was fine. Obviously, he turned out to be the main villain of the Phases episode, and we needed that because there was so much surrounding this being the episode where we find out Oz is a werewolf. We needed an outside antagonist for the episode, and I think he did it well. He was really annoying, and he was meant to be. So, you know, he came and did what he had to do. Then we have Eric and Chris, who were the ones behind Daryl, Frankenstein Daryl, right here. They were helping him out. Eric was the brother and Chris was Eric's friend. I'm going to put them in Had Potential above our little werewolf guy because they were interesting villains. And Daryl is going to go actually behind them because even though Daryl is the main villain of the episode, being Frankenstein, the real villain was his brother who was like trying to kill all these girls to give him a girlfriend and wouldn't. It was interesting that he couldn't let go of his brother's death, which is very human. Obviously, he had a lot of emotion. And then Chris was obviously wrapped up in it all, and he ended up not wanting to help in the end, helped Buffy, lead her to what was going on. So they're just more complex characters than Daryl is, but it was an interesting concept, so they're going right in the middle here. Guys, Coach Marin was so out of pocket. Coach Marin, more interesting than Frankenstein boy Daryl, but so silly. Like, how he's the true psychopath of the season is Coach Marin. I don't know how he got like that, how he justified his actions, I don't know, but he gave me a lot of entertainment value, so another one to put right in the middle of the ranking. Oh God, the Cowboys. I don't care. I don't know why I don't like them either. Like, I don't know why. They were also part of the Bad Eggs episode, weren't they? Which wasn't my favorite episode. And they were so random. Like, they didn't really feel like they fit into the episode. They were just there to have a subplot, like, of villains. And there was a scene that was just the two of them talking. And it was the one scene in all of Buffy so far where I was like, can this scene please be over? Drusilla. Marry me, girlie. She's such an interesting character. We've seen her past. We've seen why she is the way that she is. We've seen her weak because of what her and Spike had gone through before they showed up in Sunnydale. We've seen her grown back to power. We've seen her go through so much, and I never know what's going on in her head. And you know how I talked about how Xander, I never know what's going on in his head, and I'm like, I don't know. You have potential because I don't understand you as a character. I don't understand Drusilla as a character yet either, but there's this veil of mystique around her that pulls me in still. Obviously, with everything she's been through, it makes sense that the way she is. I don't think she's ever going to make complete sense to me or to herself or anyone else, because she's been truly messed up by Angel and the life that she's had to live, the immortality that she's had to live. And I love her as a character. We need her. Igon, I wanted to include because we didn't really get to see a physical manifestation of Igon, but I think he's represented well in this tattoo that is still on Giles. Crazy. I'm going to put Igon at the top of had potential because he's so interesting. He's so powerful. We might see him come back around again. I kind of hope that we do, because that whole backstory, have I talked about it enough with Giles and what he got into in his past, this whole Igon situation? I think that Giles literally still has the tattoo on him. And you're telling me that was the end of Igon? Like, I don't know. I think it's possible, especially because we know Igon has a lot of supporters. Like, maybe there's going to be other supporters out there that bring him back somehow. I'm not sure, but he was a really interesting villain, and I'm hoping it wasn't the end of him. I have to put Judge in thank you, simply because he pointed out that there was some stench of humanity still in Spike and Drusilla. Was it both of them or just Spike? But I just found that so intriguing, and I have to say thank you to him for giving me that information. And then, remember, he said there was like no humanity whatsoever in Angel. But it's so interesting to me that he smelled some on Spike. And I'm like, what do you mean? You can't just drop that information on me and expect me to move on. Like, because literally just because of that, he's going in thank you. He was also there for like the two-parter. He had a great death, and he was a fun villain. He, I think, was a perfect villain for our mid-season finale episode. So thank you, Judge. Also, I'm rethinking this. I'm going to move the Cowboys down. Does that mean I'm moving them down? Because I literally said, like, I didn't like the scene where we had to have the both of them. I didn't care about it whatsoever. Like, I was sleeping. I blocked it out. Kindestad, I think, had potential. I'm gonna put him here. I'm actually gonna move Igon up and bring him back. Wow, doing the villains. Why is the villain tier list harder for me than the character one? I'm gonna bring him in had potential. I thought he was a really interesting villain. You know, the way that he was invisible unless you were sick or like a kid. I forget. There was like only a certain way that you could see him. I loved like the Freddy Krueger call out in how they created his character. And also there's just nothing more sinister than a demon who targets children. He's got like a big scare value in my mind. So yeah, a decent had potential villain. Reptile demon, I don't really care about you. I cared way more about, did I include the frat boys? I cared more about the frat boys. The frat boys were the bigger villain to me in this episode, in Reptile Boy. I'm gonna put them actually here because that cult mindset is just so interesting to me, and I wish it was developed more, the whole frat boy cult reptile situation. Okay, the egg creature's a Z. The egg creature's a Z. What are you even doing here? Why are you here? What? What was that? Spike is the very top of Marry Me. And I think I mean that literally. The fish boys, the swim team. So like I had a swim team character on the character tier list, but then I included this just to like, I guess they're not really villains. They're more victims of their coach, but they are technically also monsters, these like fish boys versions of the swim team. I'm gonna put them in had potential. They weren't as funny as Coach Merritt, but like it's also funny to me that they're just like out there in the ocean now. I don't know what more to say about that situation. Ted is definitely a thank you. I talked about him a bit in the episode ranking, but Ted was such an interesting character because of the fact that we weren't sure if he was even a monster for most of the episode. And also, I loved how he looked as a robot. We had a robot in season 1 and it was so corny, which is fine because Buffy does camp really well, but this version of robot was really cool to see, and Ted as a character was so frustrating, even just as a human, when we thought he was just a human, was so frustrating, and he could have pulled off being a villain just in human form, but then finding out on top of it he was a robot. It was a great twist. The Anointed One, I'm going to put you at the top of don't care because we have history with you, but I still don't care. And I honestly forgot that he was even in this season at all until I went back and reviewed the episodes before making these tier lists. And then the Assassins. The Assassins had potential. They were a good distraction from the main focus of our mid-season finale, which to me was all about Kendra, but they were fun. They were fun. They were all over the place. We had people splitting up and having different things happen to them with these assassins, and I thought that they were great side characters for the finale or mid-season finale. So it's kind of got a cute pattern going on here, doesn't it? This is my villain ranking. Again, my hands are up. I'm sorry in advance for making wrong decisions. I don't know, but that's where I would put it. That's what I would put it after a first watch. So that is that. I cannot explain to you guys how excited I am to get into season 3. Let me know what your thoughts are on my rankings, obviously without spoilers in the comments. And we're just going to leave it at that. And the next time I see the Buffy fans will be for season 3, episode 1. So I will see you guys then.